I won't speak too long because it's important that Mrs. Eva Nguyenbin, the president of Institut Français in Paris, she wants to share with you. She's there just to meet you, to share with you. Just you must know that she is the head of this very important French cultural institution, and her institution is a strong support of Création Africa, all over Africa, and especially in Ghana. So thank you so much, dear Eva, to be there with us. I give you the floor. Perhaps I think it's not very important. If you want to speak, just introduce yourself, okay? Briefly, like you can, then we can share.
Hi everyone, my name is Eva. So I'm happy to meet again some of you that I met in Abidjan or elsewhere. So first of all, I'm very sorry because we are late. It's entirely my fault because I'm a bit talkative and I like to talk to the people and I like to listen to the people. So sorry we got delayed, but I'm very happy that we have time with you and for you now. So as Julien said, I'm the head of the Institut Français in Paris. So there are about 100 Instituts Français around the world. We also work closely with the Alliance Française, with the embassies, etc., etc. So we really try to cover the whole world, but we are very indeed interested in renewing what is it that we are doing in Africa. And I was very interested to come to Ghana. This is my first time in Ghana, but I wanted to come because I could feel from Paris that there is a lot of creativity here and a lot of things we would be happy to do with you. And Création Africa is a new program that was launched, and I'd be very happy to listen to you about what vision you have of Création Africa, what is it that you got out of it, the plus point, the minus point. Please do not hide anything because it's good for me to listen to everything you have to say. And also your vision of France somehow, because for some of you it may be the first time that you work with a French partner. Some of you maybe it's not the first time, but anything you would like to share would be very welcome, and this is basically why we're here. So yeah, and let's be very informal. I mean, anything you would like to share or to ask is welcome.
Industry space, and specifically how it connects to the work we did in the Création Africa Ghana. And then after that, there's about 2-3 of you that will have like a Q&A session, mostly trying to understand your experience in the program. And then after that, we'll talk briefly about some future.
Yeah, I think it will be part of the question.
Yeah, there is some future interesting things that are coming, soon to come, especially for those who went through the program in the last edition. And then in that period, after that, it's just food and drinks, and you interacting with Madame Eva and with me too, if you would like to talk to me. I would like to talk to you. And then we are done for the evening. It's very, very similar layout to what we did from where we are coming from. But first, if you wouldn't mind, I could talk a little bit about the Impact Hub Accra, how we are here, and then I pass it on to you, obviously, for the conversation about your experience in the program. So my name is Kelechi Ofebu. I am one of the co-founders of Impact Hub Accra. Impact Hub Accra is one of the leading implementing partners for Création Africa Ghana Incubation Program. Why are we even involved in this? A big part of that goes back to the reason why Impact Hub Accra started. Today we celebrate the role of entrepreneurship support organizations. One of the things that is often forgotten is why does these institutions actually exist? Our journey started about 12 years ago when today we call it an ecosystem. Back then it was I'll call it a primordial source of different players coming together to try to, because there was a lot of energy in the ether at the time. People are trying to understand, how do we build places of support for entrepreneurs? You are seeing people returning back from Europe, North America. These are people who have lived all their lives managing mergers and acquisitions and all kinds of high-level Fortune 500 engagement. And they're asking themselves, what are the Ghanaian equivalents and how can we be a part of it? This also coincided with a period in time. Anybody remember Africa Rising? There was this period where this general idea that if for some reason we had cheap internet, great electricity, nobody mentioned the funds part, that we're going to take over the world. The jury is still out on that, but one of the things it did happen was to create a communal consensus around we actually need to build an entrepreneurship support ecosystem. We don't know what it's going to take, but we're going to try at it. And this was at the time, so if you look back 2010, 11, 12, a lot of the entrepreneurship support organizations you know today, Meltota Entrepreneurship, MEST, InnoHub, Impact Hub Accra, the Kofi Annan Indian ICT Center for Excellence started maybe half a decade earlier. So they were like on the government side, some of the precursor to us existing. And so institutions like Impact Hub Accra began to exist roughly around that time. And so for us, when we started, we asked ourselves one question actually: who are the actual community that we are setting out to support? And when you look at the data that was available at that time, there were 3 core communities that stand out. It was the social impact community, and social impact in different things. You had healthcare, education, it goes on and on and on. And you had the technology-enabled product and services community. At the time, my goodness, every other week someone is doing a HTML class or CSS class or how to learn to be a designer. And then the third community was the creative and cultural class community. At the time you had things like, I know there's an interesting cultural moment depending on who you talk to. There's some things like Accra.alt that will evolve to become Sabolai Radio and a couple of other things. Great communities at the time. And so this was the 3 communities we set about to do work with. Fortunately or unfortunately for us, you might have these ideas about working with these communities, but the interests, resources, and ability to actually do the support is limited to the collective memory or excitement in the ecosystem. You can have the best design program. If you don't have partners who are interested in going that journey with you, it's just going to be you. So what we saw in the early days of the ecosystem, there was a lot of focus on financial technology. Anybody fintech? I'm not saying fintech is bad, guys, but we needed to figure out if entrepreneurs are going to build product and services, how can they collect money? How can they send money? And I think in the ecosystem, we managed to solve that problem. And as we began to solve those basic problems, attention began to move. Okay, what are the next set of communities that we have to build interest and support around? And for us, in that period, we were supporting different ecosystem partners until one of our first projects, which is around building a digital studio to report actual stories, creative stories coming from Ghana and the African continent. We're able to execute that project and we kind of built on it over time. During this period, one of the things that actually happened was that we were collecting a lot of data because we built internal tools that allowed us to understand what the market was saying, where the general trends are, and how do we build programs around them. And fast forward a decade later, Impact Hub Accra went from, we are starting from where the ecosystem began to now, for us, we see ourselves as an institution that is helping, working with the ecosystem to design what the future should be. Because at the time when we started, the story wasn't mostly ours. A lot of the excitement, a lot of the intention was coming from outside of Ghana, but nearly a decade of practice and understanding what truly we are capable of, we now are at a place where a lot of the work we do designs the future going on forward. So in the creative space, one of the questions we're asking ourselves, like in all other spaces, okay, what are the core needs of the creative ecosystem as we know it today? What can we do about those needs that are not getting met? And the third final bit is how can we actually get money resources into the hands of creators to continue to do the work they do. Because we can do all the workshops and all the travels and all the things, but if creatives don't actually have the resources at their disposal to unlock these opportunities and dreams they have, there's not much you can do about it. And so this was a vision we had shared at some point with the embassy team. This was way before we actually got to know about the program. We actually spoke to President Macron about this when he came, when he visited us in 2018. Yeah, he visited us here. And he said we are going to have a conversation. Well, I never heard from him, but but he clearly through your team were able to have. And so when the opportunity came to apply to co-create the Creation Africa Ghana program, there was a lot of other institutions that I wasn't aware of, but because we're not interacting with them at the time, we didn't know how competitive it was. But we made it very clear that a lot of the work we are building is very, very evidence-based and is based on over a decade of learning and experience. And so there was a lot of back and forth with the embassy team to try and understand the central ethos of the program and what we do in the end. It wasn't very clear that there was going to be a financial reward, and we made it clear, as a matter of principle, Impact Hub Accra does not do any program that does not have a line of sight for funding for the entrepreneurs, period. Like it's at the point in the ecosystem, no matter the program we do, there has to be a line of sight, because you're asking the entrepreneurs to take away productive time. Of course, they are learning, they are building networks, they are building businesses, but there has to be some line of sight, whether it's funding or grants, something that allows the entrepreneurs to go back to do their work. So anyways, you combine all of these learnings and inspirations, and we eventually managed to win the bid to become the partner to design and implement this program. And we did. And today we are here to mostly talk with some of the participants who went through the program. Fun fact, we had over 608 applications from across Ghana. 30 ventures made it into the final program. And there's a top 15 that came out that was the best of the best. Everybody in the top 30 was a potential top 15. It was a big dilemma because initially the program was designed to have funding for only 10? Yes. It was supposed to have funding for only 10. But everybody was so good. The actual differences in the points were like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. So everybody who was in the top 30 was a potential winner. But then you didn't have unlimited resources. So we had to make a decision, the top 15 in that line, to give the money to. An independent, yes. An independent jury had to make the final decision, not me, please. I wasn't there, but we saw what the numbers look like, and I'm glad that we made it. I think that the future edition of the program, there are conversations around how do you actually broaden that scope and possibly make it even possible for people to receive more through the program. So without much ado, this is just me recapping it. As some of you can notice, it's very operational. But I'm going to like to hear from some of you that are part of the program, your experience in it, and questions, concerns, comments, and then we can wrap up here for today. So thank you very much for your time once again, and thank you for joining us here.
Good afternoon again. Pleasure to have you. Pleasure to meet you again. And this is just a snippet of the number of people that were selected. We just want to go through their experiences starting the business and how the Creation Africa program, impacted you. So I guess I'll start with you because you're right next to me, Afro L. You do something very different, I think, with hair and preserving African heritage through hair. You want to talk about how you got into this journey of hair as this business and preserving the heritage.
Hello everyone, my name is Crystal Kudo, founder of Afro Hair Artistry. Afro Hair Artistry started with me drawing at home. I used to draw with chalk, charcoal in the house, and quickly it translated into me drawing hairstyles. So one day I decided, why not stop drawing and start recreating what I've been drawing on people. And basically that's how my brand started. And I've always very much
focus on African hairstyle, how best we could implement it, and how we could give it the best representation that it deserves in films, movie, anime, children books, why not? And that has always been the dream, and always push the African hairstyle narrative. Yes, that's basically what my brand is about.
Okay, I'll come back to you. But you also do work in preserving heritage through African film. You want to talk about your journey then? Why was it also important? I like what you also mentioned about hair being used for anime and film and all that. I didn't see it in those ways, but also explain that to yours.
Hello, my name is Leonard Ataoge Kubale. I'm popularly known as OBL. I'm a filmmaker, but I consider myself a storyteller. You know, I grew up listening to very indigenous stories from the north, and then at a point I got to realize that most northern stories were underrepresented in the global media. So I established OBO Studios to bridge that gap, where I could bring more indigenous stories into the international audience for them to see. And it all started with a passion, obviously. I started editing music videos, not my music videos, but you know, back at university, you put all these things together and then you sell. So that's where I started from. And then I realized that, well, I could produce my own content. I could start shooting, and then the drive just came up that way. So that's how OBO Studio started. But our main focus is just trying to, you know, bring most of these stories that we grew up hearing to the international audience. And most people are really yearning for such content. Even though we have similar contents there, but the challenge is that they are not well presented to the international audience. So they are unable to meet certain standards, especially our global distribution platforms. They are unable to meet them. And that's what I'm focused on. Yeah.
All right, I'll come back to you. And so we have hair, we have film, we have music.
Yes, we have
Yes.
music. Hi, my name is Pam, and I'm the co-founder for Ria Boss Open Mic. So I work as an event designer and a programs manager. And I want to say, in a good way, the story sounds the same. We saw a gap that we realized was desperately needed filling, which is performance. We have a lot of talent, great talent in Accra beyond Kumasi, but we don't have a lot of performing platforms. And for us, myself and Ria Boss, who is a phenomenal musician, we had been working together for 2 years, and we kept saying the same thing. Where can people go to perform? So we woke up one day and decided, you know what, if nobody will do it, we will do it. The challenge was in finding the right people, finding the right space, finding the right balance between, do we show talent or do we show people? And I think that's what this bootcamp gave us, just being able to decide the lines between business and creativity and finding the right balance between that. So yeah, that's Ria Boss Open Mic.
All right, and then she spoke about space, finding performance space. We now have Jumbo spaces. You want to talk a little bit about? Oh, wow! You want to talk about when you were born, why it was important for Jumbo to be, you know, created?
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Therese Jones. I'm co-founder of Jumbo Spaces, and I lead on creator initiatives. Jumbo Spaces offers 3 specific things: space, education, and access to resources for creators in the creator industry. The reason why it started is collectively, me and my 2 other co-founders, we worked in marketing agencies. And we were working with marketing agencies on the continent, but working with creators on the continent for global brands. And a lot of the things that we kept seeing was creators not being prepared for the global opportunities that were coming on the ground. Some of them weren't registered as businesses, some of them didn't have portfolios, some of them were so talented and were known by their work, but when it came to now the actual structural side of it, they lacked it. And we decided, when we were already helping a bunch of creators. There's creators here that, if you guys know my co-founder, Mr. Maisa, he's put a lot of creatives on in Ghana. And we just kept seeing this over and over again. And we said, okay, let's restructure our business. We moved away from the agency side and decided that we wanted to go deeply into the educating and offering resources to creatives that we know we could vouch for. So yeah, when we joined the Creation Africa program, there was a number of ways that we wanted to help creatives, but I think what we finally honed down on was education being a really main factor. And so we actually just launched ADCA ADCA, African Digital Creator Academy, just last week to offer education.
Nice.
And that was a part of the funding that we got from the Creation Africa Ghana to actually give creatives access to that level of educational structure for their future. So yeah, thank you guys for bringing us here.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you all so much. I must mention, I can't go without mentioning, I'm also a beneficiary. I came in through comic books, graphic novels, Moon Girls, which is the oldest IP in graphic novels on the continent, and we use this funding to move from comic books into film, 3D animation film now, and now going to run a comic book festival, hopefully, by the end of this year. So I think I want to, you started talking about it, you also did, but if you can hone in specifically on how the Creation Africa Ghana program, helped you in this business journey in the arts that you employ. So let's start with you, Afro L. Sorry, because we just ended here.
Okay, so I think for me, it was very much education-wise. I was lacking a lot of things in terms of structure, in terms of foundation. And after the program, I had to do a lot of foundation work for my brand. And it has also opened my eyes to a lot of opportunities that I was underlooking. And also very much puts me in a space where there were a lot of brands reaching out and UNESCO finding interest in working with us. So it was such an eye-opening experience for me, and it actually helped me to detach myself as a hair artist and actually looking at the business part, something that I've always been scared of approaching. But now, I think this program has given me so much confidence and also the knowledge to confront, the business world and being able to be in front of people, something that I would not do before. Yes, being in front of people and pitch my brand, talk about my brand over and over again, even if they get tired of. I'm obsessed about talking about my brand, and this program has very much given me that confidence.
So now you have a firm footing with the business.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
What about you, OBL?
Yeah, I think it's almost the same thing. We had a local market in the north. We came out with films, produced, put them on DVDs and go out. We're just doing things randomly, but we didn't know, there were theories and models that actually dictate how these things are done. So the training actually was very transformative for me and eye-opening. And I had a problem, which surprisingly, it was clearly diagnosed and then the solution given during the workshop, because I had an issue with one of the actors, and I got to realize that we didn't have an agreement. You remember that legal issue? So from the training, I got to realize, okay, the next time I'm going to engage the actors, there must be legal agreements, signing of contracts to dictate clearly what they are supposed to do and what I'm supposed to do. So for me, that was very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. Yes.
Indeed, it was. We also spoke about registering your company, patenting your content. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I have the mic for open mic. So I think myself and Ria have this conversation all the time that the biggest gift that this bootcamp gave us was that we are not business people. And I think that was a very important learning curve for us, because at its core, open mic is a community-based initiative, and it was never really truly meant to be a business. But we were able to ground ourselves in business decisions that we haven't been able to do in a while. Like for the first time, we're able to take a break and just say, hey, this takes a lot of creative labor, and so we should be able to take a break if we need to. Or having systems in place that allows us to be a registered business, having systems in place that allows us to treat Ria Boss, the brand, differently from Ria Boss Open Mic as a brand. And as a business owner myself, I run an organization called Jane Can Do that works with women to hire creative women into separate spaces. And one of the things that I have been struggling with separately outside of that was just how to objectively look at my business without being personally involved, just like what Elle said. And I think that's what the bootcamp really did give to us. It's also just how to figure out how to work outside of your creative ecosystem. Because at the time, even though we were familiar, we had been working with Afro L and we were familiar with Jumbo Spaces, we hadn't really figured out how, as a creative enterprise, we can work with other people. And that's what the bootcamp also allowed us to see. Okay, these are the separate ways that you can work with XYZ, and how do you bring that in to tie into your greater goal? Also, funding, financing, just existing as a business without going into debt. I don't think that is a lot of information comes to creative people on how to raise funds or how to even use the funds that you have raised, right? And out of that, we're even able to come up with a bigger idea on speaking to our applicators and people that register on yourself as a business. How do you plan for the future? If you're going to be a stage performer, you will not have money for the rest of your life. How do you save that money? How do you put some of that money back into your craft? So generally, it really did teach us that we are not meant to be business people, and we take that really to heart. We will not be business people, but we will continue to be as like Impact Hub, providing impact without necessarily being a social enterprise. So yeah, that was really good for us.
Or maybe get someone to run the business side for you.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, we do actually have somebody to run the business side. Thanks to our wonderful Kelechi that we have bullied and Ofebia that we have bullied for the last few months. We've actually been able to set up like a proper business structure with a team, so not everything falls back onto us as business owners. So yeah.
And Jambo, you guys have had a run, you know. So I'm interested to know how this furthered what you've already done and who you are in the space.
So I always feel like it's not a disadvantage, but I do feel like there was an assumption. The way that we rolled out Jambo, because we are in marketing, I think it made us look like the powerhouse that we know we can be. We understand the importance of having a Jambo space in Africa, because we look at ourselves as eventually becoming like a YC for the creator industry. And the problem is we actually lacked funding. I have two partners who are and I think this is a conversation that happened during the camp. I have two partners who are actually more maybe creative than I am. I'm more of the business person who looks at everything practically. I don't want to jump if there's no money to jump. And they're dreamers, right? Where they're like, okay, no, we need to do this. We need to go here. We need to go about things like this. And I think it was great that even for us, who everyone I think assumed we looked like we had everything in order, to come into a program like this that allowed us to share our story as partners, to be able to find a solution as to how three people who work, you know, very differently, how we can work together to create success for the creative industry. But also, I am Ghanaian American. I grew up in the US, and then I moved to Ghana about 7 years ago. And when I moved here, one of the first things I did was I started working with creators, because I worked with some in the US and I saw how easy it was for them to become successful. And when I would speak to creators here in Ghana, I would realize that it's not that they didn't have the creativity, they just lacked the knowledge. They didn't understand what was available to them. Even if they all have access to internet, they didn't know what they were supposed to do to get to the same level as their peers in Europe or in the US. Or even in France. And so one of the things we did recently with some of the funding is we took a creator of ours to France, with the help of with the team. We were able to take one of our creators. His name is Kojo Jr. He's a TikToker. And we were able to allow him to go and try different foods, visit different cultural places. So if you guys want, you can go on TikTok and see Kojo Jr.'s page and see how he was when he went to France. We went to even a music concert, a bunch of different things. And I think it was really cool that we were able to do that, and we were able to bring him back to show the value in how to travel as a creator, how to create value in the content that you're doing, and also how to make sure that you're creating impact in everything that you do so that you're able to build more partnerships. And now he's getting other opportunities just because of that trip from other people to say, hey, come to our country, come to over here and come and do some of the same stories. But Jambo Spaces really is an open door, and I think that's one thing that we do want to learn. We want to be able to create that safe space for creators to come in so that we can connect them to a Kelechi from Impact Hub. We can connect them to different people like the French Embassy and say, if you guys have a really great idea, here's how we can help. I mean, Christelle came one day and we sat down together, and we did our best to try to see how we could help each other. And I think that's the best thing from this program. I got to meet other creators. I got to see their problems. And that's what led us to launching ADCA, because we were like, okay, these are actually issues that everyone had in the room, including ourselves. How can we provide the network that we have to assist this? So yeah, I'm excited about what this program did for us. And I'm not just saying that just because you guys are here. I really mean it. I think that it was very impactful. I think Impact Hub did a great job in getting the right people in the room through this program. So yeah, I think.
Thank you. I think you all gave really good answers. And the last part about the networking, because when I saw the list of people who were selected in the first 30, all of them were people I was following already. It was like, wow, I'm in this list with these people. Crazy, you know? So it was like the giants all in one place, you know? I knew of them. Some of them I knew them personally. I knew Pam, I knew Ria, and others I just heard of them, knew how big they were, and we were all in one space.
No,
You didn't know I was this tiny with big teeth. Yeah, I do
But I
radio.
didn't know that you were even doing
Comics, yes.
So these are things that you now find out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we run out of our time, but I want to open up if anyone wants to also share their story. If you have questions, you know. Yeah.
Because obviously one of the main aspects that is positive, I mean, beyond the budget, is also everything that you learn through the boot camp, the training, and also everything that you learn by meeting each other. So do you keep in touch now? I mean, probably not all of you, but do you keep something going on between you to support yourselves and to develop projects together?
I do think that just beyond the surface level of connecting, we have actually built meaningful connections. Like, if I go to Northern Region, now I know where I'm staying because of OBO, right? But it's also Afro-L seeing me and saying, I've seen the hair you like. Like, we've built actual personal connections with people that will probably go beyond this. For instance, I think pre the boot camp, I had already reached out to Jumbo Spaces and worked with Jumbo Spaces on something. But post boot camp, now I have a better idea on how I can work with Jumbo Spaces, right? And I don't think that Akosia's team have told them, already booked them to be writing a. And so I feel like it's not just about the network we've built as bootcamp cohort members. Yes, and we've worked, yes, we've done a few, yes, and we even have a concert there in March tentatively, you know. So it's just been, it's gone beyond business relations at this point, right? I think earlier today, somebody was asking me about how we have even used the funding, and it's such a dicey conversation, having conversations with Ghanaians about money, right? Because nobody wants to tell you how much money they have, but we kind of jumped that hoop because not everybody knows how much everybody has. And that kind of like gives level room for us to have honest conversations about what money, the role money plays in our creative endeavors, which is not something that in my many years of being a creative, Accra has ever offered us, right? Like, so I think really the network goes way beyond just who we can work with to actual tangible connections we've made that we'll be using in our different businesses and our different individual lives, right?
I have another question, but I mean, you can say whatever you want on the previous question and this one. Had you, I mean, I'm not asking to you, Akosua, but had you worked with French Institute or Alliance Française before? And what ideas did you have about, or do you have about France, French people, or be they ideas positive or negative? What kind of image do you have about?
So I'm sorry, I think the first question was about if we've all worked together. For me, sometimes I slightly bully some of them. I'm looking at some right now. I'll reach out and say, hey, what are you working on? How can we help? How can we work together? You know, they'll give me a little bit of, you know. But I know that this year we'll probably like ramp it up. In terms of the French. I don't think I've worked with anyone personally before, but I think afterwards there's Emily in the back. We've done a few music programs with Kofi to protect creatives in the music space. We did an event on copyright. because that's something that I don't think creatives think about. And that really did so well. We still get questions about it, like, when are you guys doing it again? Is it happening again soon? So I'm going to bother Emily to say, like, it's come back again. But outside of that, no, I don't think we worked the French. But I mean, I think everyone loves France from what sorry, this is my personal opinion. When I think of Paris, I think of positive things. It's very touristy. I think I was actually grateful that the French was leading on the creative side. When I first reached out to Kelechi that we were planning on building something like Jumbo Spaces, because I know that they worked with entrepreneurs across the board. So they were the first people that we really felt like we needed to talk about. And I said to them, the hardest part about this is I don't think anyone is focusing on the creator industries. And so how do we get people to say what we're doing makes sense? A lot of people said to us, what's the point? What do creatives need the space for? What do they need resources, equipment? What do they need that for? And the great thing is in having conversations with them, seeing the way that the rollout has been for Creation Africa Ghana and just the different parts, it's validated us, because now other people have noticed and they're like, okay, well, maybe you guys are doing something that's really important for the industry. Recently, we were having a conversation with somebody who's like, okay, let's maybe start a fund so that we can also support the industry properly through different initiatives. And I'm clueless on that, so I came back to Kelechi again and said, hey, I need help with something like this. And if I didn't have this program that just happened, I wouldn't even know the right questions to ask. I wouldn't now know, okay, when somebody does come and they say they want to fund anyone in music and does shows, I'm going to connect them with Pam and Ria. If they want to do something in the film or the arts, I have OBL. I also have Gray Art Studios who are behind over there. And yeah, now I actually have people I can vouch for and say, because of this program, here's who you can support. And honestly, you guys really led the way with that, because there wasn't any of that on the continent from what I can see that was loud.
So it really gave a lot of visibility to the creative industry.
Yeah, it did, because people still don't understand how money is made in creative industries. The value of people's copyright, the value of trademarking projects, the value of even just distribution of content. People still don't understand it, because we consume all of this on free platforms. And those platforms are usually done in Western regions like the US or Europe. And so in Africa, when we're contributing content to these platforms, we don't get to monetize in the same way as they do. And what happens is we work harder to try to make money from our work, but it's not from traditional means, because now when someone wants to license it, we're licensing it at lower levels than what they would have gotten in other countries, because we don't understand the value. And we wanted to make sure we change that, where if she copyrights a hairstyle and it's used in a film, how does she still benefit from it for years to come? And those are things that we're still trying to make sure we contribute to. So that in the next 10 years, we can say that the value of the things that we're doing on this continent really provides jobs and opportunities for creatives. But yeah.
Just want to say something. With reference to the earlier question, yes, we have personal connections, but I think this might be a recommendation to Impact Hub, because I also feel like, because of this question, I'm just thinking that there should have been a WhatsApp platform where all of us could just be on there. Okay, so maybe Impact Hub could probably put all of us on a WhatsApp platform. But then with the issue of, what is the image, what people think about the French, for me, from where I'm coming, this grant was a very big one. So, when I kept it on social media, I actually had invitations to about 3 radio stations in the north. And, the first question they ask in Dagbanle, and if I translate, it's like, what do you do to the French people and they gave you this money? And I'm like, okay, yes, what do you really do? And I said, look, these are people who understand our industry, and they are interested in supporting the industry, not only in their country, but to see it globally grow. Wow. So for me, I feel this is the first time I'm also working with the French, getting something from the embassy. So for me, it was kind of like a very nice experience, and if I'm not mistaken, probably the first in the north to receive such a grant. So it was a big highlight for me. Yeah.
Best radio station in Ghana, period. Anyone else want to add? Share your story.
I think the Creation Africa program has been really helpful for us with the funding that it has provided. We've been able to upgrade our equipment to have a better quality productions, and also the mentorship program has helped a lot. We've been able to connect with Joshua Kishi. He's a big creative in the US, also Ghanaian, so like they built a platform for us to connect with him too. So we've been talking to him back and forth. Even after the mentorship program, you've been able to talk to him. Yeah.
That's fine. Right. I guess we should wrap up now, right? I think. Oh, who?
There's a contribution.
Okay.
So my name is Hughes Elam Abdallah. So I'm Hughes Elam Abdallah. So I'm from the Volta region, Keta to be precise. I'm more into tourism arts, and I'm a novice to this funding and putting up a business and all this. So I had the opportunity. I couldn't even remember when I even registered, when I had the email and I decided to come. I'm very bad at pitching, very, very bad. And that was one of the greatest things I had from this, because after the program, I went back home to organize my events last November. I was able to get some sponsors, even though I wasn't able to get a fund from here. I was able to get some sponsors to do, because I was able to pitch to them what I'm actually selling. And as it stands right now, my event is basically to promote arts, performance arts, as visual arts, performance arts, and technology, as robotics arts. And as it stands right now, I'm now getting to know more about websites, places to look for funding to establish a school. So and for this year, the plan is to set up a robotics art and craft school in the Keta Volta region, because we are underprivileged. We hardly have this opportunity to do this kind of things, like to show our talents and all those. So when I came here, I actually had the opportunity, and I'm able to now research more now how to protect my work, because after my event has been there for 5 years. After my event last year was kind of competitive for me, because people have now seen what I'm trying to sell. And now last year, we usually do it during our traditional festival, that's the Hogbechecho Festival. Last year we had 3 great people. They are more into the Chalewotes and the big arts festival, coming down to Keta to organize their own festival to compete with me. And that's a very, very big success story to me, because I never see myself to be there.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think to wrap up, what can they do to improve the program? What can they do to improve this program and make it better for the others coming? We are hoping it will continue, yeah.
Okay. I think for me, I would, for someone who speaks 2 languages, French and English, it took me some quite a time to catch up with everyone. Yes, because I remember I always go to Therese. What did they mean when they say this? Oh, can you explain further? Yeah, so it took me a quite amount of time to catch up with everyone, and not on. And not only that, I feel like it was a lot. It was a lot. For one brain. Yes, I feel like, yes. Information to assimilate, yes. Yes, because in a short period of time. Because I remember every time I go home, I had to go over everything, go over every slide, just to make sure that when I come to class the next day, I'm up to date and I can ask the right question. I think that was the biggest challenge I actually went through for me throughout the incubation program, yes.
Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else? How they can improve the program?
Yeah, Oliver Twist asked for more. I think they should increase the funds. Yes. It's because for some of us, in the film industry, the equipments that we actually use are very expensive, and production is not cheap. You understand? So we are looking to have bigger productions, because if we increase the scale, we can also work to improve the standards and then get our films to, global international platforms. But one thing that I also noticed was that when I got back home in the North, a lot of people were asking me like, okay, so how did you get to hear of it and then you applied? And I got to realize that, okay, so many creatives in the North really are not aware of it. So probably maybe in the next event, if they can probably increase the, should I say that? Very good. So that more creatives, yes, publicity, yes, yes, yeah.
And you obviously be there as well as an
Yes,
ambassador.
obviously. I'll be there. And, personally, we had a challenge, transportation, today like this, probably you just came from the house, I had to take a flight in. So it's more expensive really coming up. Yes. Thank you.
I think I want to do my question is more of a comment, Ghanaian thing. I think, first of all, it would be really good if we have a better idea how the processes are. I think this was a learning curve for both ourselves and Impact Hub, so I give them a lot of grace. This is such hard work. Just dealing with 30 creatives on any day is a nightmare, but having to do it every day for months must have been a challenge. So kudos to them, but I feel like we could have done way better with our processes in terms of how we give information, knowing what to expect, knowing what will be needed once you are done with the boot camp, figuring out what to do post boot camp. Even staying in touch with our mentors, because not a lot of them knew that they were going through like an extended period, because they're like, we're going to worry you for the rest of your life. Like, you need to understand that. And I think the second one, again, comment more of a suggestion, is I don't think you should close the door behind us. Yes, you should keep doing it, but also true to fashion for a lot of creatives, we do multiple things. And so Akosia is here today with a comic initiative, but tomorrow she could be here with something completely unrelated to that, and she should be allowed to still apply for the boot camp. So I think that's something that should be, I know we do that once you've done the first one, that's it, just about. But I think in our case, like he said, there's so many challenges and barriers to being a creative already that should not be another barrier that we have to cross. Yeah.
Pam made some really good points. I think that the program overall was a success, in my opinion. Because of, like I said, the visibility to the specific companies that were involved. I feel like what could be done better, as she also mentioned, is communication. In a lot of people just don't fully understand maybe business processes. And I think creatives sometimes they're adaptable people. They look at ways to find solutions to things. But the problem with now taking on money from an organization, besides understanding that it's a big responsibility, I think that needs to have its own focus in take on funding from somebody. What's expected of you? How do you show data on what that funding was used? And in case there is a follow-up program or there's anything like that, how do you show that you have, I guess, what determines success for the program? Because sometimes when you go into a lot of these things and you realize that they don't do them again, a lot of people don't know why. And it's because the data just doesn't, provide enough information for the funders to want to do it again. But in order for us creatives to be able to give that level of data, we need to know what we should be collecting along the way. And I think that's just something that could be improved. Like I said, I speak to some of them every now and then. And yes, I also work with businesses on the side, and I'm sure like Impact Hub works with regular entrepreneurs. They understand it. They understand the data. They'll come and show you specific statements and things like that. But creatives, when they're building projects, when they're spending, they're basing it off of passion. They're doing it just so they can complete a project. Along the way, they might miss out on some of that data and some of those details. And so a part of the programming should involve teaching them how to take money, how to take money from people and how to make sure to show that you deserve more afterwards. So yeah, that's my feedback.
Thank you. I think just to wrap up on that, and this is just making a case for artists who've come to me, and for the French Embassy, to explore flexible, easy funding. So there are some grants that they don't require any processes of reports. We're going to give you a small funding of, say, $5,000, and that's it. We trust you to do this, and we just want to see your work in the end. So easier funding, they exist. For creatives, as she mentioned, not all of them are business savvy. So if you have small, flexible grants where they don't necessarily have to go through the process of an organization that an organization will have to do to report on funds, that can also help smaller. So it can even be €1,000 or 2,000, where it's okay, we're giving you this, holding it in trust, but it means obviously it's competitive to get it. It's people who, you know, so once you get it, you know you've given it to people you trust. So that's just me making a case for people who've come to me. Thank you all so much. Oh, you have a question. Sorry, you have a question.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So, l'Institut Français, I know that most of them are present in francophone countries, like in Benin. We have l'Institut Français in Benin. We have in Togo as well. And me, that I'm from Benin. So I wanted to ask, because I do hair, and I'm very much into the hair artistry world, which is something that a lot of francophone women are into, especially in Benin and in Togo, for example. I always try to bring my hair projects there and work with a lot of women. So how can we reach out to the French Institute, for example, based in Benin and based in Ghana, how we can bridge that gap into the women to know very much about what is going on in the business world in terms of hair artistry, because there's a lot of movie projects, film going on, and African hairstyles are not really being portrayed out there how it's supposed to be, or like our ideas are being stole. So how can, with the French Institutes, help how we can bridge that gap with the women? And also, because I go to them salon by salon to preach and try my best for them to understand what is going on in Ghana, for example, so that they can be very much more aware that there are many ways we can make better money doing hair. Yes, please. Thank you.
Well, I think, for example, Julien, he can call his counterpart in Benin and see, how he can connect, because maybe they already have a project in the Institut Français in Benin, because usually we also have projects oriented on women, gender issues, etc. So I think this is something that can be bridged quite easily just by calling, their colleagues. I can do it from Paris as well, but I think it's easier from here. But what you're saying, I think, is if I move the focus, is how we can enlarge the scope to better the connections between the creatives in Ghana, in Benin, in Ivory Coast, in Togo, and this is something. I mean, maybe from Paris. I'm thinking at the same time. I think it would be maybe interesting, Julien, you tell me, but I will discuss with the colleagues in Paris. Maybe we could organize a webinar, a visio first, and to discuss and present the projects, and maybe do something like that to make a first connection and see how it can develop into concrete projects. What do you think?
Want to remember, you were there. Last year, tens of you went to Ivory Coast, to Abidjan. Yes, okay.
Yes,
So, part was not there. Yes, the president was there. So we did it. So I understand we need to continue. Okay, because as you know, we are going to do what you need. So if your expectations are there, we'll organize that. I think we need to continue the discussion, focusing on what you are expecting, what you mentioned, to change the scale, perhaps. But it's an idea for me. What is the most important? Is to continue to support you, or to continue to support other partners, other creatives. Okay, we need to make some choices, or to change the scale of the budget, small budgets. As I always said, in my office at the embassy, I don't know Ghana. Okay, so we need to speak together, to talk, and to see what we can do for the next steps. I'm sorry to say that at this moment, we are expecting a new CHG, but it's not the case for the moment. So we need so we need to wait. But perhaps if you continue the discussion with Ophelia, with Remy and Keiichi, we can propose to Paris to give, if we have your support, we can say to Paris, okay, now it's the moment. And with the support of the president, we need to continue. But okay, we need to have to make some choices.
But okay, so many ideas, huh? The fast track kind of, not close the door to a second project, etc. So also we will launch in the coming months or weeks, I'm not sure exactly, but before the summer definitely, a web app, a web application that will how to say that in English, that will provide you with all the information on call for application projects like CAG, but also like projects that are carried by other French actors, not only Institut Français. We try to be very collective. Huh? And in this app, we are designing it so that there is kind of a internal Facebook. So, for example, you can have the profile of Akosua, the location, the sector of in which she's working, so that if you want to do a project, and it will not be Ghana, it will be for the rest of Africa, for the whole African continent. And so, for example, let's say you want to go to Benin, you check that how do you say that? Yeah, you check the profile, and the profile will be limited and restricted to the people who really are active members of that platform. I mean, it's not open to everyone because we want to have a quality check. And so let's say you're going to Benin, you want to see who you can talk to for a project you have there. You can look in that web app and connect with that person. This is something we're working on. We have done some workshops also in Ivory Coast for the potential beneficiaries, like you, to listen to the needs. We will launch a meta version. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. We will launch a meta version and get the feedback of whoever wants to give the feedback. Jérémy and Julien, you will probably organize that, to keep improving it, and especially to be close to what you need and what you want. Because otherwise it will not work, and it's not for us really. It's so these are parts of the answer. Yeah, definitely. But something that I want to say, and probably it will be my conclusion, is that we did not do Creation African 1 to not hear and not be with you after that. So the idea is really that we are engaging on a journey, on a relation that we want it to be as long as possible. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, panelists.
The next set of guests to briefly talk about the other program. So there is Creation Africa, and then there is the we call it the Soundscape program, which was focused on the music publishing space. The culmination of that program, in the next month, we are going to have a songwriting camp here in Accra with artists, with Ghanaian and French artists combining to create a masterpiece. So I'm going to have my counterpart on the French side to briefly tell us about this program, what it is about, and we'll also have Mr. Kofi join us to add to. Yes, a round of applause for Mr. Kofi, who will also tell us a bit about the Soundscape program, and then we'll go on to close the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We're only still maybe 10 minutes of your time, extremely briefly. So very quickly, the project that we're doing is a bit more technical, a bit more niche, but also as equally useful. So I have two of some of our main characters from the program here with me that will be able to share their story. So maybe maybe Kuvi and Kofi, can you please introduce yourself very quickly? Okay.
Hi. My name is Nestor Kuvi, popularly known as Kuvi. I'm a music producer and a creative director, and I also work with a lot of emerging artists to help streamline their careers with their goals and other opportunities that might come out of the horizon. So I applied to be a participant of the Soundscape program early on last year, and I was one of the people who were selected. And basically the program covered everything from publishing to the music sector and how it's been developed to be profitable in France especially, and also how to apply business sense to it, like all the business fundamentals and things that you could do even without having a the qualifications to do it, but just know the basics of it and be able to apply it so that as a Ghanaian creative, I can better position myself to obtain opportunities. So during the course of the program, I was introduced to a lot of mentors who took me and my group through a bunch of exercises, drills, and one-on-one sessions where all these topics were expanded and opened our understanding to what to look out for, how the publishing sector works outside, and what are some of the things that are lacking here so that we can bridge the gap so that ultimately we can be our own publishers too. And it also opened my eyes to how functional the CMO in France, that's SACEM, the CMO in France, how they work and how fundamentally they're similar to GAMRO, but what are some of the things that GAMRO isn't doing as compared to SACEM, and how we could collectively come together to make it better. So some of the things that some of my take-homes were fostering unity in our industry, first off, by knowing that our common goal is to make the music sector in Ghana profitable and successful, so that the people after us can also have an industry that they can thrive in without having to do a lot of the hard work we had to do ourselves by looking outside and getting our publishing deals or our royalties straightened out from outside instead of being done here. Then in also meeting and having direct conversations with some of my mentors, seeing what are the other opportunities that can arise. For example, one of my P2P mentors was Blake Bassi, who has obtained success by having his own festivals in Europe and in Africa, but also figuring out how to make publishing work by virtue of his partnership with SACEM, stemming from him already working there to now branching out on his own and being able to bridge the gap between African creatives and fostering more partnerships with SACEM with them, and even some of the ventures that he's going into by establishing Africa's own first sound bank and helping me and navigate through how to partner with other producers so that we can put that sound bank together so that content creators all over Africa and the world across can have that, and that can jumpstart the whole success of having our publishing regulated here. So all in all, it was a fun but educative experience, and I'm grateful to have been a part of it.
Thanks for the introduction, Kuvi. That was extremely useful. That was perfect. Thank you so much. Kuvi, maybe you can also quickly introduce yourself and let us know about why it was important, how you were instrumental to that program as well.
Okay. My name is Kofi Boachiansa. A lot of the faces here are very familiar to me. I've been in the space for quite some time, and I'm a creative first, but my practice is at an intersection of music, film, design tech, and law. And I've worked in the advocacy space for close to 15 years in Ghana because one of the primary reasons I believed that a lot of people were not investing in creative practices was primarily because we did not have the know-how of how important IP was or is and how to protect it and to leverage that to create a perpetual flow of money to make the practices sustainable. So for the first time, actually, we crafted a program, of course, with the help of the French government, the AFD, the CNM Impact Hub as a deliverable partner. We had something called the Soundscape program, where we had 20 participants from the music space, people who were working with artists, people who work with distribution companies, record labels, artist managers, and Kuvi happened to be one of them. I was one of the facilitators for the program. And before the Soundscape program,
we had a series of copyright workshops. So we went to Kumasi, we went to Tamale, we had one in Accra at Jambo Spaces. So there's that interconnectedness, that community that we're trying to foster. Because a lot of young people, culturally, by default, raised not to realize that when you create something original, something creative, it has some intrinsic value attached to it. Most African cultures don't even have a specific word for art. So the moment it was, commodified and split into various practices, I just feel that as an African, the need to understand the importance of intellectual property is paramount before anything else. And it's easy to hear people say, yeah, people don't invest in the creative space. If I were a business person and the lack of understanding did not lead or does not lead to building a sustainable structure that makes it lucrative for me to sort of keep investing in that sector, it's bad business for me. One of the primary things we also identified was the general lack of thought leadership in the creative space, which is why I've been very bullish about trying to educate people, teach people the importance of understanding how a lot of these things are interconnected. Arts and creative disciplines are some of the few things in life that intersects with other practices or other industries seamlessly. And in our part of the world, we have lots of challenges. A lot of government institutions that are supposed to exist or taxed to handle some of these things do not even understand properly some of the things they ought to do. And this is where we come in. Now, the Soundscape program was really successful. A number of us had a chance to go to France to meet like-minded individuals, to network, build relationships, to forge co-partnerships where necessary, that cross-pollination and exchange of ideas. And it happened. As a matter of fact, we actually hosted one of our French cohorts. He came with two of his artists, and we just finalized his album. When was that? Was it last month?
I think, December,
yeah.
Roman.
From BLZ, is a record label based in Paris.
And so already it started yielding a lot of fruitful ventures and partnerships. As we speak, there's an entity here that is benefiting from that program and very likely might have a co-publishing situation with a French company, a mutually beneficial business that would oversee about 10,000 sound recordings, song compositions, So I think there's a need for us to keep our eyes on the prize, to keep programs like this going, because it's the first time it's happened, and within a very short time, a lot is happening. Now, as part of the copyright workshops, we started a campaign, the Play It Right campaign, and we partnered with the Creative Arts Agency, MOTAC, that's the copyright, Ghana Copyright Office,
and
Jambo Spaces, to create content, motion graphics, catchy short form content that people can easily have access to if they have questions to ask. The beauty of the internet is almost every information you need is out there, but it can get lost in a pool of nonsense. The bad thing about the internet is everyone has a platform, and every idiot with an opinion has a way to put it out to the world. So sometimes there's a need for these very fruitful partnerships to create stuff that reflects the times and the needs of what is really needed in the space. So for the first time, I walk randomly and people walk up to me and say, hey, we watched the copyright podcast and I learned so much. And I just registered my song and I started monetizing my content. And as an incubator where a lot of creative people go to for help and guidance, have access to the stuff. The Ghana Copyright Office has existed before I was born. This is the first time they have such a repository of information that is easily accessible to anyone who needs it. So I think like someone once said, the fact that you brushed your teeth yesterday doesn't mean you shouldn't brush it today. But the fact that, you know, we had such success with it in such a small time, it's the first time we've had a maiden project like this. It was really underfunded based off like some of the, I'm really grateful. We are more than grateful for it. But I think it's the perfect proof of concept for us to see what can potentially happen when we have more of these happening in the space. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hallelujah.
Yes, I wanted to add maybe one small thing about the fact that, as it was said, we interact a lot also with the people that are here with Creation Africa. So the campaign about the rights of artists was done with Jumbo Space. We obviously also did our whole publishing soundscape program with Impact Hub, and the writing camp that will happen in February that will also lead to other de facto co-publishing agreements. Some of the RIA Boss's artists will be there as well. So it's even bigger. It's a project in themselves, and then it's even what's coming out of them there's a big trickle down.
I think we are creating one of the first wholly sustainable creative ecosystem of interconnectedness, you know, because it's a small but growing community where at any given point in time, people would be able to reach or tap into that network to have healthy overlaps so that we can create a lot more beneficial relationships and products and services to compete globally. Any questions? Right. Right.
It's a question for you, for all of you. Oh, sorry. On your mind, do you think that for France, for my country, the Création Africa Ghana project, the FX Music project, is it the same project? The same way of thinking? Or is it a coordinate way of thinking, way of working?
The Soundscape project and the Creation Africa project? Yes and no. This was very specific to an area in music that has been untapped for decades. In fact, if we have the time, I can list close to 500 songs that have been exploited that belong to Ghanaian artists that only happened because people in the space didn't know what to do. You know, so yes and no. I'm
sorry, it's not exactly my question. My question
Maybe
is...
I didn't quite understand it, sorry.
Sorry. So, okay, France decided to develop partnership with Ghana on the CCI.
Okay.
So here you have, it's important for my president, you know,
to understand.
Right. So as Emily mentioned, okay, we are working closely, okay. But in your mind, from a Ghanaian, okay, you think it's two different projects or just one project? You think that Emily, we are from the French embassy, so okay, you are working together. Do you think that those two projects are one project?
Yes and a no. Why? Because I can't give you a direct answer, and the reason is this. I believe the end must justify the means.
Okay.
Right? Because our space is really tricky, and certain things do not work the way you'd expect them to. And so sometimes you have to use a very unorthodox approach to solving some of those questions. You know, which is why it's great this program happened, as well as Creation Africa, because we can use that, you can use the data and the feedback to streamline some of these decisions. I believe, you know, the end must always justify the means, really. Yeah. Africa is an interesting space, you know, and for all the right and the wrong reasons, certain things, like I'll give you a classic example. And I was telling Emily the other day, I don't believe in happenstance. That's just the way I'm wired. And like I said, I've been doing this for close to 15 years, but there was a reason why, for whatever reason, things just aligned to make it possible to have had the Soundscape program now. Why? Because the mass proliferation of AI on a global scale, people are beginning to ask questions. Lawmakers are beginning to ask questions. They had a deep dive into understanding the nuances and the challenges of the new world we are actually forced to face today, right? How can some of these persons who have been empowered, people who have been trained, people who would, at certain points in time, begin to have certain ventures, either in government institutions or in the private sector, how are they going to impact policy? You understand? And some of these things are really challenging. And I believe, I'm one of the people who believes that the future of the sustainability of creative disciplines, what it should be, would actually come from Africa. Why? Because we've missed out for decades on a lot of these things. And this global challenge has sort of leveled the playing field. It's like mobile payments. It started in Africa. East Africa, to be precise. Now, when you go anywhere in the world, people are paying from their cellular phones. And I believe the creative space, it's, would definitely be one of such industries to have that sort of healthy disruption moving forward, to inform the rest of the world. And hopefully, the answer to some of these questions would actually come from here. You never know. Have I answered your question? It's okay. That was a long one, sorry.
Right. I don't know if there's any other
any
questions. Or I think...
Yeah, Alfred.
Of course. Right, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, for
Thank you so much for all the support. And,
YTV, yearn for more.